Good morning, afternoon, and evening. Welcome back to the Liberal Artist Podcast. I am your host, Bodio. With me, as always, we have Kaylie Horowitz.
Hello.
And Andy Gibson.
Hello.
How's everybody doing? How y'all living? How's the week been, man?
It's fall, and it's so nice outside.
And my mortal coil is just unzipping quicker and quicker. I wasn't ready for the summer to end.
Jesus, whoa.
But at the same time, spooky, scary skeletons.
Exactly.
Right.
Replace that existential dread with some new Halloween decorations.
Yeah, I'm super excited for that. I mean, I already have my Halloween costume picked out. I'm going to go as everybody's favorite himbo. Sorry, just throwing my entire room around to pick up my costume. I'm going to be Kronk, which means I'm going to be getting them mad gains to be able to support Yzma's whole cart to run around town.
Good.
And then I'm going to be making some spinach puffs, learning to speak squirrel. It's going to be a whole delightful time.
Yeah, there's a whole checklist when you commit to dedicating yourself to being Kronk.
Yeah.
Do you have enough time to get that jacked?
I mean, there's always anchor arms from SpongeBob.
There are always anchor arms. I didn't think about that. You're right.
It's true. I mean, more than the look is the attitude, which
yes,
I'm ready to just let it all go, be commanded around by a much smarter and more powerful and cunning woman, and just do dumb, hot stuff forever.
Girl,
Yes.
same.
That is the plan, just to be
That's the new American dream, baby.
Absolutely. So if I haven't planned my Halloween costume since August, something is very wrong that year. It's a religious holiday to me.
Let's hear your best Patrick Warburton.
Ooh.
Go for it.
Okay, one quick drink.
Ooh, take the sip. Get the
Chug,
vocal
chug,
portrait.
chug.
Oh, right. The poison. The poison for Kuzco. Kuzco's poison. The poison chosen specifically to kill Kuzco. That poison.
Oh, yeah, not bad.
You mean that poison, right? Squeaker, squeak, squeak, squeak.
That's better.
That one,
That's better.
Yeah, it's the cadence, you know?
You gotta it's like translating through a root dialect. You gotta learn to speak squirrel, and that can get you to Patrick.
If anybody knows how to do that, it's our performance major and our master of performing here.
Hello.
Are you having
Hello,
fun in grad school?
Oh, gosh, so much fun. I get to, spoilers maybe for other stuff, I get to write
Possibly.
at least one final paper about performance and TikTok, which is exciting for my short attention span brain.
Does the paper also only get to be about 2 minutes long?
No, that one gets to be like 12 to 15 pages.
Wow, that's not TikTok friendly though.
No,
I don't
it's
think that's
not.
really appropriate for the medium.
It's this FML right there. For one of my other classes, I am still drafting ideas of what this paper could be. But it actually kind of has to do with some of the stuff we're talking about today and sort of how we like to remember certain pieces of media, plays, movies, etc. And are we satisfied with those? And do we want to just like make up new shit because we were really in love with that world? Or do we go, that was stupid, and I want to tear this thing apart and make a new ending just so I don't have to live with the existence of this thing the way that it is?
Yeah, before we get to the topic, and speaking of things that may or may not be stupid, I have to get this off my chest, y'all. I have to be be real honest.
Okay.
Been thinking a lot about this Mario movie.
Oh my
Mhm.
god.
Every time, somebody introduces like a new thing to me or like shows me something that's like wild, I always have the first question. I'm like, all right, really? Who asked for this? Because I sure as hell didn't.
No, I agree. Like Nintendo, when they were like, yeah, we're making a theme park in Universal Studios, I don't know who like has really asked for it other than like people just sort of generally being like, wow, Nintendo World would be so cool. But when they just went, no, like, here it is, and it's coming in 2020, 2021, and then we saw footage of it, like, wow, this is beautiful.
Sure.
This is amazing. And then they went, we're making a movie.
Yeah, I don't think and I hope to God this isn't what happens, but I know it is. I don't think Chris Pratt and Charlie Day doing bad Italian accents is gonna be...
Bo, I don't know which is worse. The fact that it could be Charlie Day and Chris Pratt doing bad Italian accents, or if they don't do Italian accents at all.
Right.
Because I'll be offended either way. Because either I'm just like, okay, that's awful, or how dare you? Do you not respect the storied history of our Italian immigrant hero who's been hardworking for decades?
Something fell and I don't know what.
It was my soul because Charles Martinet got screwed out of a big old paycheck.
In fairness, Bo, the man hasn't had to actually say more than 2 words at a time in 40 years. He's probably out of practice.
Oof.
Mario Odyssey just came out.
We all remember the brilliant monologues of Mario as he recounted existence in this ceaselessly ending void. How could I forget all of the epitaphs that he spun in Mario's Odyssey? Not just woohoo and yippee! Of course, how did I forget, Bo?
You're forgetting wah!
That's a good point. That changed me. That changed me as an artist.
The one thing that maybe I could only hope that they would make a nod to this in this movie. I already have major doubts that they will. But God, Jack Black as Bowsette.
You know what? It's worth it just for that.
No, they're not going to do that.
I know they won't, but I can dream. I can hope.
I am 100% sure that's an aspect of Mario fandom that Nintendo's like, no.
They went, hey guys, don't you like this? Oh yeah. Oh no, what have we done?
It's kind of like when Miyamoto had to like get on stage or in an interview at one point and be like, Peach is not Bowser Jr.'s mother.
We just want to clarify.
That is not real. We just want to let everybody know because people are immediately like, Peach and Bowser fucked! It's like, no, that's not what happened. I have to tell you all.
Well, once again, that is a delightful segue into our topic today.
No, we're not done yet. All right.
What if? No, wait, that's Marvel.
Goodness.
Everyone's doing it right now. Everyone's sort of like playing up the idea of fan speculation and turning it into
Everyone's
content.
doing it. What another great segue into our topic
God
today.
Damn it. I'm so angry. If y'all are lovely listeners, if y'all haven't been able to figure out yet, these two goons tricked me into doing an episode about fan fiction.
It was a very cunning plot. We just went, hey, here's an idea. And that was it.
Yeah, I foolishly said okay. I didn't say it was a long argument.
Slowly, you'll all start to realize that this show is just Kaylie and I dragging Bo into the least likely places where he'd want to explore art. Slowly, we are dragging him into the depths of degeneracy through anime and fan fiction, and it's
actively
wonderful.
dying.
I feel like Bodio is the Dot Warner to Andy and I's Yakko and Wacko.
Oh, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect.
And I look fucking rad in a dress. All right, so
there's our Halloween costumes this year.
Just me in a dress with no shirt on. Be like, hey, what's up?
You need a little flower though.
Right, I have no hair.
You just put it behind your ear. It's fine.
Yeah. So let's talk about it, right?
Suddenly, Tina Belcher appeared in the doorway. She knew what she had to do. She grabbed Jimmy Jr.'s butt and changed the world.
What's everybody's history with fan fiction? Like, where were you like introduced with it? How into it are you? Question mark. Like, where we at?
Kaylie, you're our expert in the field.
For some people, this is like a great just hobby or a nice way to write and prepare to write their own stories later. And I was super, super eager when I was first getting into fandoms in like, fifth through 6th grade sort of thing, like testing the waters, like, ooh, what is this? Kingdom Hearts fan fiction. What is? I think I ended up through a weird channel, honestly, because it sounds like more people got lucky and got introduced to AO3 first.
I'm not familiar. What's AO3?
AO3 is Archive of Our Own, which actually was a pretty like groundbreaking place on the internet, fun fact, because there was a long dispute for a while about fan fiction and whether it constitutes as original work or if it is technically stealing copyrighted materials, and they actually staked a lot of legal claim on the fact that this is original work and like is not being used to make money,
Right.
but deserves to be published on an online platform for free because it is just people sharing original work with used materials, but there's no profit being generated from it. And they won that case. So like AO3 is kind of a landmark in there. However, there are other places to find fan fiction. Mm-hmm. Whether that's communities, which this was late 2000s, so there weren't really places like Discord servers to go to. You sort of had to just have a friend who trusted certain like forums or boards enough to go there, and I didn't.
LiveJournal.
Yeah, no, like LiveJournal was notorious for either having some really good communities that had a lot of cool content or just ideas they were playing with, or like, here's a writing challenge for this month. Go, like, here's this list of topics. Each one of these is gonna be like 2 pages kind of thing, just short story. Or other times it was god awful descending into LiveJournal. You didn't really know what you were gonna get. AO3's got a really nice system of tags of like, yeah, if you don't want to see things with this kind of content, you can filter that out. If you're just looking for these characters, if you're just looking for these tags, AO3 has a great filter system.
So here's the porn, here's the almost porn, here's the not porn.
They have theirs very much marked in a way that like they like to break it down. Is this for mature audiences? Is this a certain rating? Which is above and beyond most places. I got pipelined from DeviantArt because again, I didn't have anybody else that was like able to sort of be like, oh yes, here, I'm your fandom fairy godmother. Let me show you the way. It was just me and my dumbass friends sort of going, I don't know how we got here, but we got here. Starting from DeviantArt and then just getting channeled right to fanfiction.net, which was the fucking Wild West.
Right.
Oh dear.
Like,
oh dear.
FFN throws you to the wolves. You either get to find some really, really amazing pieces of writing from really talented people, or you just get, like, what the fuck did I just read?
The dumpster fire.
Who thought of this? And why? And why did I read the whole thing? What compelled me to keep going? But and what was it? There's LiveJournal, FFN, AO3, and Wattpad was another one that I think that was more of like, for some people it was kind of babies first.
Yeah.
But I didn't get thrown to Wattpad a whole lot. Like, I have other friends that were like, yeah, that's where I started. And I'm like, I didn't even get there. My friends would be like, hey, I read this thing from this place. And I'd go, I never go to this site, but cool. So needless to say, I was super, super into it for a lot of my very informative young adult developmental years.
Did you project a lot of the thoughts you were having at the time onto the characters that you were writing?
When I wrote, I think it was sort of that like tween, teen, early angst. Like, I stopped writing as often when I was like 13, but at that point I was pretty busy with other stuff anyways, that I didn't just have like a whole bunch of extra time to feel sad and confused about myself and the world. I already have a very bad main character complex, so growing up, I was already projecting onto main characters of shows. I had, like, instead of having a imaginary friend, I just imagined all of the main characters from, like, my favorite books or movies would, like, hang out with me in my room. Like, that was how I played pretend as a kid. Yep. I didn't make up shit. I just, like, took other people's characters, and they just would come hang out with me. So there were definitely series that like I attached to as part of like, I am part of this fandom and I'm gonna camp here. And I would like, there would be things that I'd have like ideas of, I really like this ship and I want to like write a scene or like a kind of short story scenario with these characters. Not particularly fantastic, but it was at least that like, hey, even at 13 years old, I know I have an ear for dialogue. That's great to know as an actor. Like, I was at least proud of that. I was proud of the way I could write characters having conversation.
Yeah.
I look back on some of my stuff and I go, I'm not real happy with how I just realized, and this is how plot works.
Well, if you're not embarrassed by the things you wrote in the past, then you're not developing, right?
You know, I agree. Like, there's definitely some things where it's not like, and this is just prepubescent. I don't know what Smex is, but there's kissing and that's not gross anymore. So let's talk about that.
I still can only imagine that as an unknowingly asexual person, that a lot of fan fiction was probably a bit off-putting just because of, in some works, how prolific all of the sex can be.
There is a like an interesting sort of field of exploration of fan fiction in that regard. Like, can this be a tool that is a safe space for young adults to explore like their sexuality and stuff that they think they're interested in, arguably some kink, but like, and is it a safe tool to do that? And in some ways, yes, because it's like, these characters aren't real. What does it matter?
Right.
The like this in your as you're thinking this through, it's a consensual relationship, hopefully.
Well,
or like, for the purposes of the story, I hope maybe there's like some resolution to that if it's not, but that's a separate can of worms.
Yeah.
But like, at a bare level, is this a decent tool for exploration? And it was definitely, like, for my experience, there was definitely the like, some of these like depictions of relations you're describing between characters are very interesting to me, even at a level that, like, as someone who recognizes, oh, I'm a-spectrum demisexual, like, I don't think I'd want to do this, but I remember reading this when I was 15 and going, that's fucking hot.
Jesus. All right.
However, there were definitely still some things that I was like, oh, that is beyond my comprehension of why people are like, yeah, I'm into this.
Right.
Like, there are some things that I'm like, this is, I'm too vanilla for this. This is some side of the internet that I don't know who enjoys this, but I'm a little scared to find out.
Right.
And yet, you, in our research, sent us a fanfic that had a brief romance between the building of Hogwarts, the whole campus, who had been brought to life, and the squid that lives at the bottom of the lake.
Let's talk about how Kaylie inflicted tentacle porn onto us.
Yeah.
Without consent, by the way.
I mean,
I'd like to put that out there. No, you're not. No, you're not. Fuck you.
She did put a content warning.
I did put I was like, this is the most cursed.
All I saw was one of my personal favorites, and I was like, oh, this will be nice.
No,
click.
No.
No, I'm putting that out there. I'm putting that out there. That's the hot press. What if Kaylie Horowitz, ladies and gentlemen, what if Kaylie Horowitz's favorite fanfics has a giant squid, I assume giant squid, fucking the building of Hogwarts? There. It's out there. It's on the internet
I guess
forever.
It's a favorite in just recognition of, this is a piece of literature that somebody wrote.
This is not literature, Kaylie. This is a war crime.
Easy. What's the shit called?
This is against the Geneva Convention.
Yeah. First Encounter by Lyris Malachi. Mr. or Miss Malachi, I don't know who you are, but I'm pissed off about
I don't know who gave you the audacity.
Back in 2006.
My God. That's been swimming around the internet for 15 years.
I hate that you use the word swimming.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is one of those that I did not go looking for. I wasn't really into the Harry Potter fandom. Like, again, one of its probably more infamous pieces is Oh my god. What's
My
the name
Immortal,
of it?
right?
My Immortal, yeah.
Yeah.
Ebony Raven, Darkness, Dementia Way, that whole shebang.
Give us a quick synopsis of My Immortal for the people
I
who
don't
aren't in
even
the
know. I've never read it all the way through. I only hear the first chapter over and over, done by different like voice actors, and I'm like, I don't need to read this.
Suddenly, just as Draco kissed me passionately. Draco climbed on top of me, and we started to make out keenly against a tree. He took off my top, and I took off his clothes. I even took off my bra.
My Immortal's an infamous example of, I made an OC that's kind of inspired by me, and I just really wanted to, like, be in this relationship with Draco Malfoy because they're my favorite character. And there's something, like, arguably wholesome to this, like, you could tell at a like, level of, like, childishness or childlike something that the person is missing, that they're like, I'm trying to wish fulfill for myself, something that I do not have. But then there are some levels where it's a little like, I'm uncomfortable now.
I'm gonna
like.
I want to dissect
scale.
what you just said. You just said there's something wholesome about somebody inserting themselves to be in a romantic relationship with the family who parallels Nazis.
I mean, in that instance, that's sort of a question of like, why do you like this character?
Right.
But as just a base. As just like a base construct of like, this is my favorite character in this show, and I am lacking like some form of like platonic affection or a romantic relationship or something like that in my life, and I'm trying to fulfill that by imagining if I knew this character in their world, or if like we went to the same school together.
So do y'all think that's why so many fan fictions, or fan fiction as a whole, has the people see it as very horny? You know what I mean? Like, and so I'm from the camp where I didn't read fan fiction because I was like, oh, that's just where people write like Harry Potter and Pokemon porn, right? Like, that's what I grew up knowing what fan fiction is. Do y'all think there's like validity to that, or is there like a reason why it gets that stereotype?
I think because those are the ones that get people's attention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like,
sex
you
sells.
look at something like, sex sells. Like, why do we have 50 Shades as one of the most notable examples of this was fan fiction?
Yeah.
I think part of it is that a lot of literature and a lot of fanfic is about like desires that all of us feel, and everybody, feels things in a different way. But commonly it always comes back to, we want to feel like we belong, we want to feel loved, we want to feel appreciated, romanced, things like that. Not to speak for everybody, but that seemed to be a lot of the universal themes. And that's not to say that all fanfic is romance. It just popularly is known as such. I think it's a safe place to express desires or to self-discover things about yourself, whether that's romantic or something other meaning for yourself. Like, there's a lot of people that use fanfic to figure out gender identity. There's a lot of people that use fanfic to discover what other things they want in life on a personal scale or on a more public scale, things like that. And I think the benefit of many of these boards being relatively anonymous is that you can do that without having to open yourself up to public criticism. Some of the writers that I had read interviews from had said that if you were to share your stories in kind of a public forum, oftentimes you get made fun of when you're a kid or kind of ostracized when you're a teen or an adult. So it is a bit of a safe space to be able to express these things about yourself.
That being said, Lyris Malachi, who published First Encounter on August 9, 2006, your space is not safe.
No,
I'm not coming after you, but understand that I'm pissed.
We're going to find you and just stare from across the street and shame you.
Right. Nothing out loud. Nothing that will disrupt your day.
No.
We're
I'm
gonna be
scowl.
we're gonna be like that one screen cap of Ned Flanders when he's outside the window holding the sign
my
that says
God.
Christ is watching.
Yes. No, and like again, fanfiction gets this very sexy, cringy connotation because people read stuff like that, and if you're not part of the community that's into tentacle porn, you walk away going, what in God's green earth allowed that to exist?
It fucks me up that there's an entire community who's into tentacle porn. And I know you're right.
The
but
rabbit
never
hole
thought
on that
of-
one goes deep.
I never thought of it, and I refuse to think of it as a quote-unquote community.
Oh dear.
Like homies in houses be like, hey, bro, you catch that new hentai? Yeah, man, that shit was rad as hell. No, I
Hey,
don't.
you leave Samuel Jackson out of this.
We're not here to kink shame, but we are here
not-
to shame.
I do not judge out loud.
Release the Kraken!
It's funny that you bring up Harry Potter because that reminds me of something that I wanted to bring up. It's a popular alternate universe fanfic written by Cassandra Clare called the Draco Trilogy.
Draco Malfoy.
Yes, the Draco Malfoy-centered trilogy used a technique in the fandom community of fanfic called filing off the serial numbers, where you create a fanfiction based on somebody else's work, and then you change the names of it and then sell it as your own piece of fiction, because she turned the Draco Malfoy trilogy of fanfiction into the Mortal Instruments book series and has made, assumedly, millions of dollars off
There's
of
a
that.
lot. There's a lot of things I don't know what you just said.
I do know this case. I do know this. This was one of those instances coupled with the adaptation from Twilight fanfiction to its own series of books.
Yeah.
Yes.
50 Shades of Grey.
That 50 Shades of Grey went through.
Yes, the technique of filing off the serial numbers is something that's been pretty widespread throughout fanfiction's history. It really only came up when copyright became a concept.
Right.
But since then, some of our most popular works in literature have been based upon name-changed fan fictions. For instance,
Yep.
Kaylie brought up the fact that the author of 50 Shades of Grey started out her stories as Twilight sexy fanfic. And she just changed the names from Edward to Christian Grey and so on and so forth. And she has made, again, millions of dollars by changing it from fanfic to profic, as it's known.
God, I gotta brush off my FFN account and get cracking again. Jesus.
Please don't.
You're just sitting on a gold mine right there, Kaylie. If she can make millions off of 50 Shades of Grey, the book where people stick thumbs in each other's mouths, you can do anything.
I'm angry.
Yeah, I was too.
Let Christian Grey seduce you over and over again through the voice of Gilbert Gottfried.
I cry out loudly. Oh, please, I groan. Quiet, he orders, not taking his eyes off mine.
I guess a question I have is because I was thinking about this as we were bringing up this topic and thinking about discussing it. Is there a difference between like fan fiction and parody? Because I would argue my biggest exposure to fan fiction is like YouTube parody of everything, right?
Yep.
Be it Marvel stuff, any movie that's popular, right? Any video game that's popular, some
Oh, yeah.
meme or jokes about it written, right? So is there a difference between that and fan fiction, do y'all think?
I've seen some research on it, and I think it depends who's writing it and what space they're writing it in. Because a lot of the interviews that I'd read in my research were from women who had written fan fiction. And fan fiction was often put off as pastiche or like, you know, illegitimate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pastiche is kind of like parody, but like not so much for humor. It's more like tribute or using somebody else's characters that you were not necessarily authorized by the original creator to use. If I'm using that word correctly, I'm also a dumbass, so who knows? But what I'd seen is that within our culture, at least in America and Western culture in general, is that when men write fan fiction and maybe change the names here and there, like with James Joyce's Ulysses and Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet, which were likely based on other plays at the time, it's considered transformative. It's considered something new in the genre. It's considered that it's moving things to a different place, playing upon the classic notations, but also trying something new and spicy out.
But when women do it, it's stupid.
They write romances, and that's it. And their work isn't worthwhile because she's just writing about dicks, I bet.
Well, and there's something interesting, too, to the way that fan-generated work has played into the continued development of mostly, like, literary work, but also, like, other art inspired by said things. Like, there is this idea that, like, yeah, women sort of gravitate towards romance novels, arguably, because for much of the world as we know it, women weren't able to go out and, like, collect that kind of research of other experiences. They could try, but that didn't always mean that, like, they were even going to get taken seriously enough to get published, even with an alias or an author's name or anything. To me, there's something funny about how fans drive works to happen no matter what. I always think of the example of how Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was really into writing these Sherlock stories, and people liked him, but after a while he was like, okay, but like I want to write other stuff, or I have other things that I've written and I think they're pretty good, so Sherlock's over and I'm gonna go write those things. And people got so upset at this man that he had to resurrect a character and basically just became shackled to this work because he would keep trying to kill him off, and people would go,
no, success.
No, I want Sherlock.
And they're still saying that nowadays, waiting for a new season from the BBC.
No. We're getting some Doctor Who again, and unfortunately, I think the Destiel thing caused a rift in the timeline that I'm scared if we open up any more old fandoms, it's just gonna get worse. Sherlock needs to stay dead for now.
Right.
No, but then also things like when Pride and Prejudice hit shelves, there were like knockoffs and imitations and like sort of basically fan-generated ideas of the themes of Pride and Prejudice. And still to this day, it's one of the most adaptive works done to death.
Didn't they make a movie from, and I always thought this was a fan fiction, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies?
It was a book first.
It was a book.
I started reading it in junior high, and the Pride and Prejudice parts bored me, and I just wanted to get to the zombies and ninjas, which, says a lot about me at age 13.
There's ninjas in it.
Oh my god.
Oh, there's ninjas in it. Bo, it was around the year 2010. You just threw things at the wall and you saw what stuck.
Yeah, zombies and ninjas.
But like this idea that like for as long as we have had non-published manuscripts and fans dominating a pop culture space of literature, like there is always the idea that if fans want something to happen, they're going to make it happen.
Yeah.
And I think speaking to that like parody and pastiche, I still see that in fan fiction. Like, here's what's new for this show, and some people will have written like a spoof of an episode, but that almost to me feels like somebody just published more like a readable, less than a film script, but like a film script of, oh my gosh, Hellsing Abridged or a Dragon Ball Abridged kind of format, but they've just written it into like a prose style. But fan fiction, I think, exists in that need to satisfy a desire from the fandom and the community. Like and that it becomes different from parody in that there is a particular purpose they are trying to accomplish with that. It could feel paradical.
Paradoxal? No, that's different.
Yeah.
That's totally different.
That's
Look,
completely
man.
Paradox.
Look, I said some words that aren't words earlier. You're fine.
But no, I think fan fiction comes from that place of either a self-fulfillment or a fulfillment for the story that was not satisfied by an author who was either able to not make another film because they couldn't, like, the studio didn't want to make another film, or they wrote the book this way, and then when people were so excited for the book and they bought it and then they read it and they go, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
That reminds me, I need to finish my Game of Thrones manuscript
Please
to
don't.
make up for seasons
No, please.
7 through 8.
Oh, God.
You know, like, and there was stuff that, you know, as new games kept coming up for Kingdom Hearts, I remember people would sort of jump online and go, well, here is a big plot hole that could have been fixed if they just did this.
Kaylie, the series is more plot hole than plot.
Facts.
Yeah, but, you know, like, gives room for more fan fiction.
Yeah, but like on the topic of Kingdom Hearts, I think that's interesting, right? Because
it's already a fan fiction.
yeah, exactly. So you have these like legitimate, quote unquote, legitimate pieces because of their size and scope. But they definitely play like fan fiction. I think Kingdom Hearts, somebody took Final Fantasy, made their own OC, and then splashed Disney on top of it.
Yeah.
And then like even keeping the Disney train rolling, thinking of things that feel like fan fiction but are quote unquote legitimate. I think of like the Marvel What If series and the Star Wars Visions series, right?
Both of those I would definitely place in that category, less of parody and more of fan fiction, fan service, because here fan fictions to me always, like, when you're looking for something to read, explore the idea of what if this happened in the main plot, or what if these characters just existed in this kind of a world instead of the world in which we know their story to take place. And like that's the premise of almost every good one that I've read, is just that what if.
Yeah.
I think that is something that we're going to see more and more of as we have these giant crossover works that occur. And speaking of giant crossover works, I'm just going to bring this to a screeching halt for a quick second, because that reminded me of a certain series that I grew up with called the Super Smash Brothers series. I'm about to solo show this.
Girl, go off. Let him hear it.
Okay, well, I want to give you a few facts and figures before I go into this.
Tell me.
The Lord of the Rings trilogy contains 558,000 words. War and Peace contains around 600,000 words. The English Bible contains about 727,000 words.
Are these individual words or words altogether?
Words.
Words. In the words of Kenneth Branagh.
Words.
There is a fan fiction about Super Smash Brothers Brawl.
Yep.
It contains 4,102,328 words. I'm taking off my headphones so I can step away from the mic far enough to use the volume that I need to talk about this thing, because for a time it was the longest English work of literature ever created about Super Smash Brothers! My God! It started in March 2008 when Brawl released! It contains 221 chapters! It's a self-insert about a guy who wants to fuck his Lucario! And you know what's the worst part of all?
Tell him.
I read chapter 1 and chapter 221 and they sound the same! He hasn't changed his writing in over 13 years!
Oh, no. Think after all that time he would have gotten better.
By its finish, it will total roughly 10 million words! and take back over as our longest literature in the English language and in human history. And he still hasn't fucked his Lucario!
No!
It's a fanfic based on a messy fanfic already. The Super Smash Brothers series is already bad fanfiction. And it just keeps going. And it'll never end, and we'll never be free of it.
He'll never fuck the Lucario.
He'll never do it. I'm telling you, I swear to you, I swear to you. The syntax, the word usage, the overuse of adverbs, from an English teacher's perspective, it's almost exactly the same. And I know because I did some research on it that the original writer, Aura Channeler Chris, originally was a kid that started speaking Spanish and had English as a second language. So when I was reading it, I was like, oh, this is interesting. He mentioned that video games and fanfic were things that he used to learn English. And I could tell by, a few typos here and there that it might not have been his first language, but for a teenager, it was pretty standard writing and pretty normal. The exact thing you'd expect from a teenage fan fiction, inserting yourself as the main character, having, your, I assume, furry crush as
sexual adoration for Lucario, the Goku Pokemon.
Furries.
Everything about that is perfectly fine. The man was likely 16 at the time. Sure. And you know what? I respect it. I respect putting yourself out there at a vulnerable age to be open to criticism. And I'm taking the headphones off again.
There he goes.
Because it's so worrisome to me that it hasn't changed at all in 13 years! All right,
You good? You good?
It's just the fact that, you expect with the evolution of an artist to just adapt over time, and
but
I will never judge somebody for yes.
Lucario's already fully evolved, baby.
I just expect some change. I just expect some development of style. But to stay exactly like you were 13 years ago as an artist, to be the same as you were when you were a teenager, it just makes me scream a little. And I'm sorry. I'm very sorry that I dragged you on that journey with me. But it was just so mind-boggling.
Did he ever update with any of the new DLC characters?
Yo, is Cloud in that shit?
Yeah, is Sephiroth in there?
We got a little bit of Minecraft Steve?
Kaylie, I need to tell you both this. I searched for a synopsis. I searched far and wide on the endless plains of the internet. I tried really hard. I could not find a summary for this story. It's so long and sprawling that as far as I can tell, nobody has attempted a synopsis of this over time.
Long and sprawling like my lust for Lucario.
I wish I could tell you more, but it's just not there. It just doesn't exist.
So, Gibby, what you're telling me is we gotta give you homework and you have to read all of Subspace Emissary, the fan fiction, for homework.
I will scream until my brain explodes if that occurs.
Oh, dear.
Because, Bo, I can't do 4 million words of this.
What? You just gotta believe.
Imagine reading War and Peace, 14 times, basically.
But fuck and Lucario.
My God, preserve me. My God, why have you forsaken me? I think there's something to be said about self-inserts and discovery and, putting yourself kind of in the middle of a story, in that I think it's something we all did when we were children. I remember being 6 and pretending that I was in the biggest Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel that my neighborhood had ever seen before. Sure. And you just think of yourself as being the best because that's just kind of, an egocentric thing to do.
you're the main character. Who's gonna stop you?
Precisely. It's wish fulfillment, and that's something that carries on through your developmental stages into your teenage years and everything, till you learn the world around you is more than the world inside you. That sort of thing. And I think that's another thing where women tend to get more criticism than men. Back in the earlier days of fandom, fan fiction had been a fixture in science fiction magazines from the 40s on, but it really picked up with the 70s with the Star Trek fandom.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, Star Trek was one of those, like, early modern examples of fandom gone fucking wild.
Space, a final frontier.
They had conventions, they had zines that they would print off on cheap copiers.
People learned Klingon, like, people learned Tolkien's Elvish, but people learned Klingon more than that first. And, like, my favorite thing is honestly the, like, couple that met each other at a Star Trek convention, but, like, one of them spoke English, one of them spoke, like, French or something, like, didn't even share the same language, but they could, like, connect with each other because they both spoke Klingon, and then they got married.
That's wild.
We run because Star Trek fans and Trekkies walked before us.
Exactly.
They laid out the path. But something that popped up and originated in the 70s Star Trek zines and everything was the concept of the Mary Sue. This is where that originates from. And it, to my research, it stems from fan fiction written by a young female fan who had self-inserted her on the deck of the Enterprise and was always able to help, no matter if she was helping with the folks in command, in security, whether she was helping out Spock or
is that
the
where that phrase
and
comes
everything.
from? I had no
That's
idea.
where the phrase comes from, and she gained such infamy in the community for it that it became a term for a female character who is perceived at being just instantly good at everything and is usually criticized for it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, men had been writing those characters for centuries, for millennia.
Hercules.
Like, the entire tale of Gilgamesh is just a guy being told to go do things, and he's able to do all the tasks.
Odysseus in the Odyssey.
Odysseus has a little bit more, like, character flaw. Like,
Does
I'll admit
he?
there's...
Because he gets away with it.
No, he does get away with it.
And he's kind of just rat at everything.
And, like, when you're telling that story, like, in ancient Greece, you're like, fuck yeah, I want to be this guy. And with a sort of modern critical lens, we could kind of look at him and be like, and then we get, oh brother, where art thou?
But that movie rules.
but no, like, one of the earliest fucking pieces of recorded, like, storytelling is just a guy who's really good at doing shit, and he's just really smart and really strong. And people are still like, yes, especially when it's a dude. Yeah, that's all we need.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of like the son of God trope, but taken and put on a woman in nerd culture, and that somehow got mad animosity. Is that what you're saying?
Kind of. And, like, the Mary Sue, I think, lives in a land of not just, like, it's that character type, but a woman, but also the way that she's written.
Yeah.
Where it's that character type, but she's still, like, the writer is still trying to play the conventional, like-ness of feminine in traditional storytelling.
Yeah.
Like, the Mary Sue is sort of this, like, yeah, she is capable, she is able to do all the things, she is chosen one if the story calls for it, like, she is that center figure.
Yeah.
However, she is still facing the, like, the sort of, like, expected, like, circumstance for your female character that either she has to overcome or someone else helps her overcome, which is, like, being teased, being looked down upon by other people in society. Like, the female character is sort of the, like, more harshly judged or dismissed.
So you still have to break the glass ceiling type deal.
Yeah, like you still have to break that because woman.
Yeah.
But that makes no sense when you have a character who can do all those things, and that's where that discrepancy like holds a more of a problem as a notable thing as a Mary Sue. And I think there's what is like a Mike Sue or something like that. There's like someone's coined it for guy characters that do the same thing. I sort of think of it as just like, yeah, average white guy in musical complains about like how shitty things are, but he is the one making things difficult by not committing to a decision. Yeah, big fish. Be more chill. Like there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
But it's the she can do everything, but she is also so insecure because she is also trying to embody traditionally attractive female characters where there is no self-confidence, self-assurance, believe in self, even though she is very capable. Like, if a good example that always comes to my mind is Clara's introduction in Doctor Who. I really wanted to like her because she was such an interesting character because of how everything came back to her.
Yeah.
However, it was always this, she is the solving point to everything, and yet she is never like fully in control enough of herself.
If somebody's
like,
that
able
powerful,
to take initiative,
they should be confident in said power, and it doesn't make sense to still have them to be like, I have the strength of Hercules and can call lightning from the sky, and I have a degree in engineering, but I'm so dainty, right?
Yeah, no, like Captain Marvel in the film, unfortunately, does it a little bit too. But I think they kind of let it go because they turned it into a buddy cop movie where there's that kind of fades away a little bit. But it is that like you are the like the son of God character. But nobody likes me.
Yeah.
What?
I think part of it is that we want characters that struggle and learn things about themselves and fall and get back up again and everything. And it's not interesting when there's a character who's just good at all of it initially. But at the same time, I think somehow in nerd culture, probably through some lens of misogyny, there are a lot of men who are just so much more willing to call a female character who's good at things a Mary Sue that they don't even give a chance to see where her character goes with it and how she develops. They're so quick to dismiss it that they would have never done the same thing with so many of their self-insert avatars in anime, in movies, things like that, because they're used to being the default. They're used to having somebody to project upon, and then suddenly that default's a lady, and they're just like, well, I can't do anything with this.
Rey and Rose in the new Star Wars, I think, get so much shit for those reasons. I don't think they're like, I think as characters, I think their characters work great for that world. I don't think the storytelling of those plots work well for most of the what they were trying to do with the new trilogy. But I really was interested in what was possible to explore with Rey as a character. And Rose was so charming and sweet and capable when Finn was sort of like, I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. Like, they were great foils when they needed to be with who they were around. But exactly, people roast the shit out of them because it felt very much like that. No, we've seen where they're very powerful, capable people, but we haven't seen the instances of them being like nonsensically insecure or like a fault of their own that feels out of place for this character in this universe.
So fanfiction, legit or not? Is it or is it ain't? What do y'all think?
I definitely think it is. And there's actually been, when I finally listened to the Adventure Zone, like, 3 years late, it kind of re-sparked my interest in fandom and community, and I like dove sort of back into like what's going on AO3 and found a lot of really interesting takes on characters, or like alternate like story explorations or character relationship explorations. And just, if you don't want something to be over, or you're interested in where things can go from what you have, it's a really great way to explore, to try. And if you're interested in writing as a career, it's a really nice, just sort of like almost like a Photoshop. Like, here are my tools. I don't have to sit down and make all these things from scratch. I can just make something with what I have here, and then maybe use that to inspire something else down the line.
I think it's absolutely legitimate, and I think a lot of the people who see it as illegitimate are often coming from a more sexist perspective, or other things too, because you have a lot of space with fan fiction over time for marginalized groups, not just women, but also including people of color, also including people from the LGBTQ plus community. I think that it's a valid art form that gives a platform to people who have historically been kept out of that platform in the past, to be able to explore themselves, to be able to communicate their angsts and their desires. And I think that if anybody wags their finger at it and says, "Oh, you're just copying other people. You're just you come up with an original idea here or there." Well, a lot of our major works over time in our culture are just rehashes of the same thing, sometimes just filing off the serial numbers and giving us Shakespeare that we have to read in our classes in ninth grade, poorly at 9 a.m. with very unenthused 15-year-olds. So I think it's perfectly legitimate. I think, like Kaylie said, it's a great way to get started, despite the fact that I may or may not regret some of that which I wrote in my younger years.
Oh, sure.
But we can keep that locked away in the vault, because, like Bo said earlier, if you're not embarrassed of what you made 10 years ago, you're not developing as an artist. Oh, yeah. And I'm talking to you, Aura Channeler Chris. Fuck that Lucario already and get it over with.
Just do it!
My God.
For me, I'm kind of the camp is like, yeah, like y'all like do whatever you want. It's not my personal cup of tea, and I need, let me get all up in the mic and fuck up the editing. I need a Virus Malachi, writer of First Encounter in August 9th, 2006. I need you to know, I'm not coming after you. You're never gonna meet me, but I'm fucking no.
Consider Christ.
Oh, no.
Coming after you. No, I'm not. I just said I'm not, and I'm not going to. I never am. But understand,
the rapture will happen, and it's your fault.
You will be left behind.
Good God. Okay, but before we wrap up real quick, I'd like to ask, Kaylie, do you have any particular fanfics that you'd recommend for any listeners to check out?
I found a lot of really good stuff for the Adventure Zone, like for Balance, for Amnesty. Like, Taz has a really awesome community of fanfiction writers. Some video game stuff I think worth looking into are sort of your Nintendo spaces and your Square Enix spaces. There are already some really rich and interesting worlds to start with that people sort of took those and ran and like really fleshed out what's possible here. And I also just want to give a shout out, because I really love them on Twitter. Dr. Emily Friedman, if you're interested, at Fried E. She's a professor at the college that we went to, but she also like specializes in research in like historical writing, like 18th, 19th century writings, unpublished manuscripts, like fan fiction.
Oh, yeah.
All stuff that was like fiction, fan fiction-y. And she also does a lot of stuff on TTRPGs and D&D and stuff like that.
for me, if you want to see some fanfic from 100 years ago that breaks copyright before copyright existed, check out The New Adventures of Alice in Wonderland, which was not written by Lewis Carroll. If you want to see how it was done in the era of copyright with filing off the serial numbers, check out Cowboy Blues, which is just name changed and swapped Starsky and Hutch fanfic. And my personal favorite nowadays that I've read is Her Eternal Soulmate on AO3, which is a fanfic about the good place where Tahani and Eleanor were put together in an alternate timeline as soulmates. It's delightful, and it really fits the character of the show while exploring something that everybody said, what if, with a delightful romance. There, I'm done. But don't get into Subspace Emissary World's Conquest because it's too much for one man.
And if you want some sweet, Tackett's pseudo-modern world fanfiction, look up Vibing and Keeping It Tight on AO3.
That is pornography, and that is where we are ending it. Nope, it's over. It's over. We're ending it. Thank you so much for joining us. Join us next time where we go on a discussion that is much less cringe. Peace!
The Liberal Artists Podcast premieres every other Thursday on your favorite podcasting platform. The show is hosted by Bodio, Kaylie Horowitz, and Andy Gibson. You can find the show at LibArtistsPod on Instagram and Twitter. Thanks to Whitehot for performing the theme song Reflect, which can be found on freebeats.io. Now, I'm off to go exploring, and maybe, just maybe, I'll find a sheep that I can call my own. Good day.
Teach Pokemon to understand the power that's inside.
Power that's inside their buttholes, I guess.
Yikes! Okay, not having fun anymore.
Okay, making a marker, because I'll cut that, but regardless...